Okay guys, this is your last step for this project. So at this point, you should have a completed ground view scene of buildings. You should have your outline. Everything should be done in Sharpie. So you should have looked at the slide prior to this about analogous colors and what they are. So analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. And you're going to choose between 3 to 5 different colors that go in order on that color wheel. So I'm going to show you first with watercolor paint. So I have my watercolors all set to go here. We're going to start in the center of your circle and work out. I do suggest starting with your lightest color, excuse me, here in the center, so that you can then work out towards the edge. And you also don't have to worry about dirty paintbrushes and dirty water. So I'm going to start with yellow, and I'm going to again start in the center, and I'm going to go in a circular pattern. Now the challenging part is to stay clear of your buildings. So depending on how many little details you have, that may be not too hard, or it might be quite difficult to go around all of your little details. So I am working in a circle, okay? So now I need to think about what color is a neighbor color to yellow on my color wheel. Well, I can go one way or the other. I can go one way where yellow-green would be a neighbor, or I could go the other way, which would be yellow-orange would be the neighbor. Now, I don't generally see green in a sky, and I don't think about green ever being in a sky, so I know which way I'm going to go. I'm going to choose yellow-orange, but you can do whatever suits you and whatever floats your boat. So I'm going to continue on while this is still wet, and I'm going to add my yellow-orange. And depending on the color quality on your computer screen, or your device, you may or may not be able to see much of a difference. But I am trying to make sure my yellow-orange is blending in with my yellow. Hi, Mrs. Cott.
I'm actually teaching.
I'm recording a video. So can I talk to you later?
Yeah, it's Mrs. Buckman. She needs a little help on the computer.
Okay, I can't help right now. So I'm going to continue on with my yellow-orange, going around the edge, and hopefully my yellow is blending with that. Okay, so I guess the biggest concern that you should have is you don't want it to look stripy. So next to yellow-orange on the color wheel is orange, and I'm going around again, trying to stay clear of my buildings as best as possible. And again, how am I going to make it not look stripy? Well, I'm going to hopefully work with wet on wet, so it's 2 wet colors touching each other, but I can also take a clean wet brush and I can do some little teeny circle patterns so that my colors do blend a little better. It's not easy to do on this regular paper, but it is doable. If you work though when the colors are still wet, it works much better. So I'm moving on to some red orange. Now I think I'm going to change my mind and I'm going to just go directly to red. I think the red will blend with the orange just fine, and because I want pink as one of my, or red violet as one of my analogous colors, I want to make sure I save space for that. So I'm taking all of the red, again working in that circular pattern, really working hard to try to get my 2 analogous colors to blend where they touch there. That one blended nicely. And I'm going to just work my way around the circle. You can rotate your paper as needed. And then I'll use my last analogous color. So please keep in mind that I am staying in color wheel order for this. I'm not going yellow to pink or yellow to red. I'm using all the colors in between so that I am making sure these colors blend really well. If they're not blending, adding a little bit more water, going right around there. I'm going to rotate my paper so I don't end up with a wet sleeve or a colored sleeve here. that blended nicely. That was really nice and wet. I just went into my building a little bit. There we go. So there's one finished one, and that's really all that it takes to finish. I'm going to quickly show you how to do this with some chalk pastels if you want to use that, and it's an option, but you can use anything that you have at home. You can use colored pencils, you can use crayons. I really want you to focus on the blending so that it's gradually going from one color to the next. Watercolors is probably the easiest, followed by the chalk pastels. Once you start using the crayons or colored pencils, it does get a little bit more difficult to blend because you have to overlap the colors. But I will just pause for a second and I'll go get my next medium. Okay, next up are the chalk pastels. So let me tilt my screen here. The first thing you want to do is you want to decide on what colors you're using. So I know that I'm going to go from turquoise to a medium blue to a darker royal blue to a violet. So those are my choices, and already I'm getting lots of color on my fingers here. But once you have those colors chosen, you are going to do the same thing. You're going to think about working in that circular pattern. Do this with crayons or colored pencils. Maybe just really lightly sketch the color that you're going to use. I'm going to put down that turquoise. If you're using chalk pastels, do it very, very lightly. You can do this with oil pastels. You'll press harder with those. Then I'll put down my medium blue, going in that circular pattern, trying to stay off my buildings as best as I can. I'm not being super careful to color up, fill in all of my white space because chalk pastels do have really great blending capabilities. I'll show you that in a second, but I've got this nice royal blue and I'm going in there next. And then last but not least, my violet. So just filling in any remaining area. And it looks okay how I have it, but blending is best. Blending is best. So I'm going to take a tissue, I'm going to wrap it around my finger, and I'm going to start with that lightest area first. And I'm going to do my best to soften that chalk pastel, really trying hard not to go over top of my buildings. Then I'm going to blend that light blue into my dark blue. Try to do one color at a time. I don't want to do this whole row first because I would then have to switch tissues every time I went back to a section. So try to blend that turquoise into that royal blue or that medium blue. Oh, that's blending really, really nicely. And then not last but not least, then I'm going to that royal blue, blending that medium blue into my royal blue. Little circles work great. If you do end up with any real light spots or white spots, you can always go back in really lightly to fill those spaces in. And then last but not least, you'll blend in that violet or whatever analogous colors you have. It's always best to go light to dark. And it doesn't always work perfectly, but if I do accidentally get some color into my buildings, if it's nice and light, you can usually go in there with an eraser and clean up any smudges that you may have. So that's working out pretty nicely for me. I really love how the blues and the purples turned out. So there is another example for you of adding color with analogous colors. So go to it, finish up that project, and please don't forget to submit a picture so I can give you a grade for this project. Hope it's a fun one, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.